Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment, where real stories, raw truth and powerful shifts come to life. I'm 𝗪𝗁 𝗪𝗲, and around here, we don't do small talk. We spark transformation. Let's go! Before we dive in, here's something that might just change the way you lead. Still trying to motivate people to change? Stop. That's the problem. 𝗪𝗫 flips the script with a method that actually works. No gimmicks, no fluff. In the awareness workshop you'll learn why most change efforts crash, how to build behavior that sticks, and what it takes to lead a team that owns it. Change shouldn't drain you, it should drive you. Dare to lead different? Visit 𝗪𝗫.nl. What if the part of you that never quite fit in was actually your greatest strength? In this episode I sit down with Kemo Camara, founder of Omek, a global community empowering biculturals of African descent to lead with pride, purpose and power. From Guinea to Amsterdam, from outsider to builder of a 75-country movement. Kemo's story is a masterclass in conscious identity, leadership and legacy. We dive into how migration shaped his purpose, why biculturalism isn't confusion but capacity, and how Omek became a bridge for the global African diaspora. This conversation, it's a compass for anyone navigating between worlds and building something bigger because of it. Let's get into it. Kemo.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment.
Thanks for having me. It's been
a privilege. Sorry, I'm so enthusiastic to have you here in the studio. You know that already. And we were just talking about when I heard you for the first time in the podcast. And with who was that?
I think Mark with What is the Meaning of Life?
Yeah, and I was both, well, in hindsight, I feel now both a little bit intimidated about the real genuine questions he was asking and the way he is able to create together with you that podcast. And so I'm thrilled and both honored to have you here today.
Wow, what a nice way to start. Hopefully I can live up to that expectation.
You will for sure.
I'm excited about this conversation though. I'm excited. I think we've been trying to make it happen, so I'm glad it happened. So
Great.
Yeah.
Let's begin where we met. That was last summer. It was at the Omek Summit.
Mm-hmm.
It was for me the very first time I met you, but also the Omek community. And that you have community, you have an event, and we just talked about the book of Priya Parker, The Art of Gathering, and everything in that book was in place there and even more. And
wow,
but
Priya Parker will be proud.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, who's this guy? Who's taking my hard work and then make it happen?
No, you could have written that book, but but to be honest, it was amazing, and I was invited by a friend of mine, Karim, who was also doing a round table and also was in the panel together with Salman, and it was amazing. Also, he is a moderator. It's amazing group of people, an amazing, genuine feeling of belonging in such a big amount of people, because there were almost, how many were there?
I think a little over 400 people.
Yeah, 400 people. It was really busy. So let's start with unpacking Omek. I think that's part of who you are, right?
Yes. Let's do it. Let's do it. But yeah, I think on that story before we jump on Omek.
Yes.
I think we were talking about that, how we connected, because you were there with Karim.
Yes.
I remember like getting people in the room when I'm like, yo, let's go. And I was like, screaming and then like getting people motivated to go, and then you like just jumping into it and then like a
whistle
and then I'm like, that's my man, like that's my boy. Like it was like, yeah, direct connection from there. I was like, yes, I love that energy. It's like, because whenever you gathering people, like you just being genuine, being yourself, and then I always meet people like when we here, we are together. We all decided to be here. So we have to, like, I have to treat you as a human being. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Now your title, now your whatever, like, I'm just a human being with, like, you know, like a sense, like humor, and then just meeting you. So for me, it's been the thing. And like at the Omek event, like when people are there, like people usually get surprised. Like I'm at the conference, and then it's like usually at the conference, there's this like formal way of doing them. Like, no, yeah, come on, let's go. We here together. This is a family, and then let's go. We acted that way.
That on itself, in and on itself, we are here a family.
Yeah,
that's what I felt.
Yeah.
And you know me a little now. You know a little bit about my background. A family feeling is not a really common feeling for me. So I was like, hey, wow, this is new. Feeling invited. I am invited, but feeling invited, feeling welcome. And then also, can you imagine, we don't know each other. Everybody in that space knows you. And, okay, I'm not shy, but feeling also the freedom, the way I use my energy, but also the whistle blowing on my fingers, to go. Everybody was in right away focused, and okay, we have to move. That's also something what you're holding, and that's a sort of trust and space. What I felt, because normally at the formal event, I wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
Can you imagine everybody in tuxedo and everything, and then
yeah, it's like, who's this guy? People will look at you, and when you did that, and for me, my reaction was like, that's my guy. And then like for you, it's like, oh yeah, this is like, and then like we just kept doing it, and we kept like, and then the connection, and people get people are now used to this kind of environment, and then it's like, yo, I never met this guy before, but like the way he's interacting with me, it feel like we know each other for a long time. I feel like I belong here. I feel like welcome. Like this whistle wouldn't be accepted in other places. No. But I'm here, and it's accepted. And then by not only Kemo, but like by everyone. And I just feel like, oh, wow. Like I'm meeting all these people. So we are human, man. We just treat each other as a human.
And and what does it say about why you started Omek? Because this is something, what you just said, family, belonging, Omek. Tell us more about people. A lot of people know Omek. A lot of people should know, but don't know at this moment. Mm-hmm. What is there to understand the why, the how, and the what of Omek?
The why of Omek. So let me take a step back. For those who are like listening to this, I've never heard of Omek before. So basically, Omek is a community with the sole purpose of bringing biculturals of African descent together, right? And I think my initial idea was like, let me create a space where I make it extremely easy for biculturals, especially those who are change makers, those who have this drive in them already of being part of something that's bigger than themselves. Like, how do you create a space for them where it become extremely easy for them to find each other? Like I usually use this method, like remove the black box where it become, find each other anywhere, anytime. Because when you do that, what happens is that they will become, when you see each other, there's this linear thinking, right? When you see each other, then you start to connect, to talk to each other. Once you start talking to each other, you start to build rapport, right? And once you start building rapport, then through that, you start building trust. And when you start building trust, then you start like, hey, how can I help you? Like, oh, you're doing this. How can I support you? How, can we collaborate? So like you start getting to that. And for me, as a community, once you get there, the sky's the limit. There's nothing else you can do together, especially with people of like-minded people. So that was like the initial intention for Omek, especially for someone who, like me, who travels a lot. Like I was born in Guinea. We'll talk about that a little bit. Yes. I was born in Guinea, grew up in the U.S., moved to Germany, spent 3 years there with my family, then pack my stuff and then move to the Netherlands. So it's like different places. So having Omek for people like me, it would be so much easier, because when I'm traveling, it would be nice to have a community before I get there. I build a friend, and my integration will be a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And that idea became like a little bit the genesis of Omek. That's in a bit the why. And then we got to the point where now it is really the ultimate intention, the vision behind it is to create a world where bicultural makes decisions that will shape the future of global economy and culture. So think about it like the idea is to really create transformational future leader or future transformational leaders, because we have such a leadership crisis right now. And so we want to create future transformational leaders who are going to make the right decision for us, and the future will get better with them in those places. So that's the bigger vision, and that start all with a community. That's always a community. So we're starting with like the building block of humanity, like community. That's the building block of us as a human, like always a community solution to everything. So we start with that. Once we come together, then we bring the tools and resources and everything that's needed there now to empower people, to enable people to go in and solve their problem.
Beautiful. And you mentioned something, and I think, can you help me better understand what you mean by social leadership is broken? You said or is challenging?
Yeah, I said there's a leadership crisis right now in the global level. Like think about there's people who are leading us. Like I don't have to say the name. Like look at in the Netherlands, like the leadership that's there in the US, in like across the world, like what is happening. These people should not be leading the global economy. Like they should not be making the global decision. Like they just. So we need a new generation of leader that have like this element that's important from the humanity perspective, like the empathy, right? Like the courage, right? To engage with other people that do not share your values, that do not have was not raised in the same culture and tradition, the mindset that you have. Right? And then having the courage to understand them, to engage with them, like the resilience, right? Like there's basic fundamental human skill. Mm-hmm. Like we need the future leader to have that. And where we are right now, all the leaders that we have right now are driven by ego, by all like fear, all this stuff, me, myself, and I, and with that mindset, then the world can't function that way, because the person who grew up in the United States, live in the bubble in the United States, has no idea of the values and the way, like the person in Jakarta or the person in Senegal or the person in Aruba, like they just don't have the same values and vision and the tradition and stuff. So like, how are you going to make it? Someone from the U.S. can make a decision for those people. And then the best way to do that, so that's why we're going back and forth, but that's why someone who has a bicultural identity has the built-in muscles, the built-in tools of navigating different culture, right? Because if you're bicultural, basically what that means that you grew up navigating, you had this privilege of belonging to more than one culture, right? And so, for example, for me, like being an African descent, but growing up in the West. So I have the Western culture because I grew up in that, but I also was born and raised in the African culture, so I have that. So I'm navigating between these two cultures. These two cultures are part of who I am, of my identity, right? And so if future leaders are bicultural, they by default have the empathy of understanding more than one bubble.
That's interesting that you mentioned that you have more than one cultures in you.
Mm-hmm.
What makes me curious, and also my own discovery, is by growing up without even being conscious about bicultural, because I thought, yeah, I'm Dutch and I'm adopted and Dutch parents. But what makes me wonder is we have so much conflict in the world, but we have also inner sort of conflict sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are some tensions you feel when inside of you when it comes to the Western and the African culture? What kind of tensions do you feel, and how do you navigate those?
Yeah,
because that's where we can learn also in the outside world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me personally, I mean, this is like, again, we're talking about like navigating different culture, like the bicultural identity, right? The superpower of it, because I always consciously talk about the superpower of it. It's a superpower. It's like if you know how to use it, and if you're conscious of it and intentional about using it, it becomes your competitive advantage. It becomes literally your superpower. But if you don't, then you will see as a disadvantage. And I think that's getting to your question.
Yes.
If you don't know, if you live, let's say you live in one culture, that culture will always look at you from the lens that they have. Therefore, they will project what they know about you. Like they will tell you who you're supposed to be from their perspective.
And what they think
they
know about.
So that's that. But the society itself, as a collective environment, is going to tell you how you should navigate, who you should be within that environment. Does that make sense? So if you're in the West and you grew up in the Western, for your example, like you grew up here in the Netherlands, of course, the Netherlands culture, tradition, everything is going to tell you this is what it's supposed to be because you live here and this is what you need to go through. You need to obey by, and then all that stuff, which is normal. Because that's the culture, and that you need to learn that culture, and you become part of that culture, or you adapt that culture. But if you only were born and raised here and like only from here, then it's easy because that's the culture you're in. But if you have a different culture background, cultural heritage, then it becomes a different thing. Now you have like you as one person, who you are, your identity is who you are. Then these two cultures now become things like where the Netherlands culture is like telling you, no, this is who you're supposed to be. This is what it is. This is how supposed. But your cultural heritage also on the background, and it's also telling you, no, look, we are here. This is this is your origin, right? This is your source code. What are you doing?
It's source code, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You mentioned that also in our pre-conversation, source code. That's an interesting one. It's not even your inner critic. It's besides your inner critic, what's also part of us, right? We have all sort of inner critics. Some have stronger inner critic than the other, but we're all not sort of blessed with an inner critic. But besides that, there's also a cultural upbringing and cultural belief system at place, right? In you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you always have these two culture fighting over your attention, right? So like, no, me. And so a lot of us bicultural find ourselves in between those, right? And then there's like a different option. When you find yourself there, you can either choose like to completely ignore one and then pick one. So it's like that's a total assimilation, right? Or total just run into say, no, my cultural heritage, this is who I am. That's it. Period. Like I'm not adapting anything. I'm just gonna stay out far away. So you can like just run in that corner. That's maybe the extreme, and then that way you can see like these two culture are conflicting. Like they're just conflicting. So I have to pick one, right? I can't just navigate. And then sometimes you could be like stuck in the middle. You really don't know. You can't pick one and you don't know. And then you feel this sense of complete disconnect, right? You feel like the sense of like, I don't belong anywhere. And then the vast majority of bicultural are like in that middle there, right? So you have some like a really very, very strong. I'm going to assimilate, forget about my culture of origin. I was born and raised here. So this is who I am. I'm a Dutch, period. End of discussion. Completely assimilate, completely go there. Or you have an older that's like, no, I'm not Dutch. I would never be Dutch. I am this. Like for in my case, I could say I'm an African. That's it. I'm going in that corner, period. Right? Even though I live here and I just live here. This is a transit. But the vast majority in the middle, that confused state, like I really don't know. Like, I can't abandon it, but I really don't feel like a sense of belonging. Like, if I go to Africa, they're like, but you're so like Westerner, like, you know. And then if I come here, they're like, but where you from? Like, you know, all this culture, like, but like, I know you're Dutch, you speak the language really, but where you from? Like, you know, that question, we all get that. But the best place to be, those who are lucky, I call them the conscious bicultural. The other bigger group are like very
conscious bicultural.
Yeah. So the consciousness is like really understanding the two culture that you have here. You are in charge. Yeah. These two culture are now your identity. Your identity is who you are. So there are elements that goes in your identity.
Part of who you are,
yes,
but not who you are.
Who you are is a part of who you are. So you can even look at it as a tool. These are toolkit that you take and then you integrate into, because it's a culture and there's an older element of your identity, right? Outside the culture, right? And so these culture are like tools that you have, right? And you can leverage them whenever you want, however you want, wherever you want. You are in charge. They are not in charge of you. So when you distance yourself that way and then look at it that way, then it becomes completely transformational. Because what happened is that then you look at your Dutch culture as a tool that's part of your identity, because it's yours. You are born and raised here. Therefore, nobody's supposed to tell you, because it's a part of your identity, and your identity is yours, and nobody's supposed to tell you who you're supposed to be. That's you. That's your journey. You figured out what your identity is supposed to be. Because of that, the culture being part of that, you decide what it means to be a Dutch. You decide what is that culture is to you. Nobody else should decide that, right? Once you get to that point, you actually will see yourself become even more Dutch. Why? Because it's a tool. Then in that tool, or like it's a toolkit, right? Then you want to add more tool within that toolkit. Then you can use anytime you want to. So the more versed you are in your Dutch culture, the better for you, the more equipped you are. The more versed you start becoming in your Dutch culture, your culture of a heritage, you start looking at that like, oh, this toolbox here doesn't have a lot of toolkits in it. And that's when you start realizing, wait, I don't know so much about my culture of origin. I may know a lot in my Dutch culture because I was raised there, I was grew up there, but this toolbox here is empty, right? And if you're looking at it that way, then you're not going with your judgment or like, oh my God, like my culture of heritage, I don't know. No, it's a toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and add more to it. That means I'm going to educate myself more. And the more I learn about my culture of heritage, the more I'm adding to this toolkit, the more toolkit I'm adding in this toolbox here, the more tool I'm adding to this toolbox, the better I am, the stronger my identity I am. Because like, look, I can navigate this tool. And once you start doing that, instead of you seeing these two cultures as a conflicting, like most people are, they become complementary.
Man, hold on. I knew it was going to be a deep dive, also personally very resonating conversation. And before we even move further, what really struck me is the conscious bicultural. Besides why it's personally resonating, conscious bicultural needs, I think, at least one element inside of us which enables that. And that is a sense of feeling the space inside of you because conscious decisions need space, right? Between stimulus and response. So, for instance, you're in a situation where there is something happening which is conflicting with your feeling, then normally we tend, and when it's maybe slightly hurting or whatever, we tend to react. But now, when you're conscious enough, you have to allow yourself that space to feel, to reflect, to look inside, and to see, hey, in which toolbox am I going to look to? However I want to, do I even want to respond? But this is a process, my friend.
It is a journey.
This is a journey.
It's a journey.
I'm trying to grasp what you said, and I'm trying to visualize in front of me how that then even looks. What made me curious, because although it starts with me, this podcast isn't about me. It's about learning who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, and how much of your personal journey is related to what you're doing right now, but also why you're doing what you're doing, and also how much is it really aligned with who you truly are. And that brings me to you as a person, and also in relationship to what you said about conscious bicultural. When I met you, although it was busy and it was buzzing, and a lot of people had to move, and they were just buzzing and mingling with each other and having a great time, but they had to move, and you had the strict time limit and all those. I really felt right away what I also feel with our mutual friend, 𝗪𝗪 𝗪𝗲. And that is a certain groundedness, a certain completely okay with who you are, as the way I perceive it. So it's from me, from the outside, and I didn't even know you. So I met you, and I was like special dressed, and it was amazing. And that made me right away curious about you. And then hearing you in that amazing podcast we just mentioned, where the unpacking, and I became really curious about, okay, but you grew up in multiple continents. Maybe let's just start then, unpack a little bit about the upbringing, and then go even further and dig, okay, but where does that really rooted groundedness come from? I'm only starting to learn a little bit to become I'm aspiring towards, and I'm really gravitating towards that groundedness, because I think life can be so much richer and beautiful if you allow yourself to be whoever you are.
Yeah,
and be very okay with that.
Absolutely. Well, if you want to go back, right? So for me, I always say this. I love saying it, and I'm very intentional about it. Like, I'm one of the most privileged people on earth. The reason I say that is because I was born, like I had this jackpot to be born into the family that I was born into. Like the parent that I have, because I didn't choose, like, you know what I'm saying? So that's why it's like a life jackpot. And so my parents were community builder by nature, and their parents were community builder, and their parents were community. So like it's a generational. It's a generation. It's a generation 10. But my parents were like, you know, these people were like they have a huge compound where, I mean, they had 9 kids. So we have 9 siblings. So they have 9 kids. But even those 9 kids were like the smallest part, like I said, the smallest nucleus of their family. So like they were just raising people. So you will have in the compound always have like 60 people easily at one time. And so what that does to you when you grow up in that environment, then you have like brothers, sisters, cousin. But where we grow up in the culture we grow up in, there's no word for cousin. So there's not cousin. So it's just like brothers and sisters. Yeah, so like...
A lot of brothers, a lot of sisters.
A lot of brothers, a lot of sisters.
Great.
So even though like our nucleus is like only 9, but we have like so many kids. And so there's so many aunties, so many uncles, right? And so like it just create this I call it the human technology that's there because everybody knows, you know, your space, you know, your position, you know, your role, you know, like, you know, there's this beautiful hierarchy there, but within that, you know that there's a system of support where I almost call it like a one for all for one. Like everybody's there, I got your back. You know, everybody got your back. You know your role in that society, in that environment, in that community, but you also know that it's a community of support. But nobody explained it to you. It's just natural. This is what it is. That's how life works. So you grew up in that environment, and you don't like in that bubble. You don't realize like that's not given.
Different in the rest of the world.
It's not.
Others,
So you naturally grow up. There's a community. There's a support system. You know, and then you don't have to focus on yourself because you already know everybody's focused. Everybody got your back. And so then you putting your energy on focusing on other people.
And helping.
And supporting other people because everybody's supporting you. That means you supporting everybody, right? And that's like this became like the philosophy of my life philosophy is like the best way to help me is by helping other, right? It just come from there. And then I saw my parents just doing that. I didn't understand at the time. I'm like, yo, you already have 9 kids. That's so many. Why are you raising 50 other people in your camp? Just focus on your... But I didn't understand it at that time. Now that I'm a community builder, I'm like, that's been the philosophy. And so I come from that kind of environment, that kind of society. For me, I tell people like community building is a part of my DNA. Like wherever I go, I just bring people together. So that's a bit like also the origin story of like where Omek comes from, right? Because I grew up in that environment. I also seen my parents come together, build a community, and have this innovative way of accomplishing, of helping other people. Like I give you an example. Like, so our house was a hub where everything will happen there. Like we have a bigger compound, but because of my parents also were successful in their career, so everybody from their village or community, when something happened, when there's a holiday, they'll come to his place. And then so there's always like it was the hub like for the community. And then also he was able to bring people from his village, people from his tribe together, and then because most of the people were going through him to go to school and then graduate, they would take off, right? His house was there, like people would send their kids to him and then he would put them to school and then they would grow up there, they would graduate, they would start working, they would move on and new people come in. It was just like that. And so he was bringing those people together and then they would create this organization. They created an NGO. I'm like, what the heck is that? And then it's like, but you were a kid and you kind of seen that happen. And then they leveraged that NGO to like start building school and start building hospital. I'm like, whoa. Oh, this is, but I was seeing it was normal and a thing, but like it was just like transformational. Before it was just like, hub, like a party and then, celebration and all. And then because they're all like educated and they came together and they were like able to get funding. Because
it was almost a sort of laboratory also, right?
Like they were able to get a funding and then like they had the funding and now they're building school, they're building a community center, they're building like a hospital. And I'm like, whoa. And so like that stayed in the back of my subconscious. But it was like.
It planted the seed.
Yeah. And so for me, like now that I'm doing Omek, and I know when you bring people together, the sky's the limit. You can do it because I've seen it and there's nobody can tell me it's impossible.
No.
And that's why for me, like finding myself in this space, other people are like, yo, this is a waste of time. This is so hard. Why are you doing that? I'm like, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. I might be taking it in a different level and leveraging the technology and then everything that I have on my disposal. But at the core, bringing people together that have a common shared value, shared experience to accomplish something together, it's possible. That's what humans have done our whole existence.
True.
So
What?
that's the origin story.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And but it's also interesting because we know about, we talked about the States, we talked about Germany and about Netherlands. Living where you lived sounds safe, very protected, very guided maybe also. And then all of a sudden you decide to go to the States. How did that pop up?
Yeah, that's a good question. You live there. So for me, I went to the State because I had this bigger vision. When I was growing up, I was like, man, I don't like how the things work in here in the government and all that stuff. And this was like, I started thinking this way like when I was like around 12. So I don't know how, but so my vision was all the time before I got to the university and stuff, like I'm going to go to the US. I'm going to learn everything about the capitalistic system. I'm going to go to the best school. I'm going to work for the best company. And I'm going to come back to Guinea. And I'm going to work as the ultimate goal to like become a minister or finance minister. But at the end of the day, I wanted to be sitting at the table when the so-called external people come in, like IMF, World Bank, and then all this stuff. I'll be sitting at the same table as them. It's like, yo, you can't tell me anything. Like I'm
educated, I know my stuff.
We went to the same school, we went to the same environment, so I come from there, so I can sit at the table with them. And so that was my linear thinking. This is the reason I went to the State. So I went there, put my head down, just went through school, worked, and just made my way through a corporate America. But that was like the main reason that I went to the State, and it was like really this linear thinking and like a very clear vision. So like, yeah, we can do this. Like when I come back, we're gonna make it happen. So I went to the US, and then again, I work in the finance, in the banking area, and left that at one point and work in the corporate America in strategy and then operation. And so I had like all this leadership skill and then building there. And long story short, in 2015, my family and I packed our stuff after working like for 10 plus years in the US. We came to Germany as an expat there. So when Germany, I went back to school. I did a development in economics and international study, and that still had the same vision, right? Because now in the US, I've done the school, we went to the university, graduated, all that stuff. And then I have like 10 plus years working the corporate America. I have like really fairly decent amount of like understanding the strategy, the basic like hard skill that you have, corporate skill. So I know like how do you move thing from a point A to a point B. Like if you want to accomplish something, what is the strategy you need to do and how do you get there? I have this, and I've been part of a community in the US like my whole time there. So one thing that was missing in this piece of the puzzle is the economic, but the macro aspect of it. So that's what I saw development in economics in Germany, and I took that. For me, it would be like great, like everything that I have now, if I know a development in economics, that would be in the macro level, right? So how do you now move a country from a point A to a point B? Community is nothing like a smaller sample of that. Country is a bigger sample, the macro level. So if I be in community building, if I have a career experience, I have like all this, leadership experience and all this like strategy and then all that. So I, basically developing in economics was going to be like, the thing. And I get in there 1 month into, I'm like, this is, excuse my French, but like everything I'm learning here is BS. It's like complete, like everything, basically like the theories that I was learning, are theories especially about development in economics, like the things that they're not using, like they using in I don't even like a third world country, but they're using on countries, the theories don't work. Like basically the theories that's like, for instance, like AIDS, right? Like AIDS doesn't work, and then we keep studying all these things, like a bunch of theories, like this do not work. At the end of the day, like people are the one that need to solve their own problem, and then there's nothing here that's enabling them to do that.
We have to empower them, equip,
and then when I got this, like, really disappointed on that, but my vision is always there. Like when I was in the US, my vision of like really helping, going back and help my community, my country from a point A to a point B. How do you do that? I wanted to learn that process. In school, one thing that came to my mind, I was there, I kind of got really excited about learning more about the diaspora and the power that they have, and then the work that they do, and especially the successful diaspora communities, like what the impact that they have had on this people, and then development and economics, because I look at it, I got hooked into from the development and economics and the role they're playing in development and economics. And I'm like, wait a minute, at the end of the day, development is nothing else but improving people's livelihood.
Yes.
Like that's what it is. Like, how do you improve people's life? And so that is all about people. And I'm like, the diaspora are like this human asset that you can still use to achieve that. And so I don't need the development and economic route and then theories and all that stuff. My vision and my dreams still stand. And so I got really interested into the diaspora. I was like, yo, this, especially what other successful diaspora have done and the impact they have made, these are a segment of the people. So this is almost a community that's making an impact. I'm like,
what can we learn? What principles?
Yeah. And then I'm like, this is what I've been doing my whole life, community building, right? And I've seen that innovation that my parents that I was telling you, right? They did that with the community. They said that all these things started trickling back, like the dots start connecting. I'm like, oh, forget about the development economics and all the theory. Let them do whatever they're doing. My journey, my dream is still alive. I think I can use this diaspora as a segment of the population, as a community, to actually far exceed what the development in economics things does.
Yeah. So before we sorry to step in because you are so driven, but before we move further, is what is diaspora? What can you explain?
So basically, diaspora is the simplest way to explain it is a community, a group of people living outside the country of origin. That's like, so if you call the Indian diaspora living, let's say, in the US, that would be like an Indian community outside India that's living there, right? So the Jewish diaspora, the whole concept of diaspora started with the Jewish migration, right? So like how the Jewish was displaced from like their homeland, and then they lived outside their homeland. They had yearning to go back, and so they started calling that the Jewish diaspora. Right, and so like a community living outside your country of origin or like your land, and so now like it applied to everyone. So like once the community live outside the country of origin or continent of origin, that's called the diaspora. So the African diaspora, the Indian diaspora, like
And what? Because you can right away see that it really grabbed you, right? Why is it working? Why are you so enthusiastic about it?
What is working?
Diaspora and the whole principles behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen, it's like if you look at, there's a lot of successful diaspora. Now all of them are, but like there are a lot of successful diaspora. The reason it works is because there's this community of people that's living outside their country of origin, and they have like this strong affinity about with that country, right? And so when they accumulate knowledge and the resources here, like my story, right? I came to the US to accumulate knowledge and resources and the capital, and then I can come back and then support. And so exactly that's what the diaspora are doing. So they collectively they have accumulated this. They have this term capital. So it could be social capital, human capital, financial capital, political capital, philanthropy capital, like all this.
And the collectiveness. That
collectiveness. So once they put those resources together, they can have a far bigger impact. Right, on that country back home. So like diaspora who have been able to come together have like making bigger impact. If you look at the Irish diaspora, for instance, the Irish community been in the U.S. for a long, long time. And so now, like, most of them are having this bicultural awakeness, like understanding, like, oh, we are American for like a couple of generations, but we still have an Irish root, especially this younger generation, right? And so, like, they're becoming conscious about their bicultural identity. So having the Irish and then the American. And then, so, like, once they start getting there, and they, as a diaspora, they start leveraging all the capital that they have built, and then, like, supporting Ireland. Indian diaspora has done that. Like, it's been extremely successful. In 2000, the Indian government did this big study about the diaspora. And then, like, they saw, like, the potential power of it, and then they implemented a lot of policies. And then, so, like, all this Indian diaspora in the U.S. and across the world, like, there was like a policy that they put in place to, like, really facilitate them going back and then invest in those resources there. So there's, like, a lot of successful, like, if you look at the Tiger 5 country in Asia, for instance, diaspora helps a lot. So, like, there's all this story. So, like, people coming back and then, like, really contributing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you went from Germany to the Netherlands.
Yes. So from Germany, after realizing all these studies, so basically for me, I decided, like, okay, I'm gonna do my master thesis on the African diaspora understanding it, and then that led me into the point where, like, after the study and then the finding and all that stuff, were, like, became in the second genesis of Omek. Like, all the finding that I have, like, that's where I really came across of, like, this bicultural, in the African diaspora, the power that they have, the capital that they have accumulated, but most importantly, this consciousness that was coming to them. They couldn't put a finger to it, but, like, they were, like, really starting to become, especially this younger generation, they were, like, this consciousness is about them that's like, wait, I need to be part of something that's bigger than myself. I cannot put up with the status quo anymore. I need to create a change. I need to, like, create a change I want to see. I need to change the narrative. I need to build a table, like our own table. So, like, there was this, I was seeing this energy with the younger generation. And then I'm like, oh man, like, I'm having a conversation with people from Germany, Amsterdam, Paris, New York, like, it didn't matter. Like, they're all having all the same energy, the same drive. They're speaking almost the same language. And so for me, it was like, oh, it's obvious. I need to build a space where all these people can connect. Like, I'm not the only one that have this privilege. I want to normalize this privilege where everybody sees each other. So that's why let's remove this remove this black box and normalize the connection between these amazing people, because I'm talking to this guy from New York, and he doesn't realize there's another person that I'm talking to in Amsterdam or in Paris that's doing similar thing. That's the same energy, that's speaking the same language that they are speaking. I'm like, if we all can see each other, look, the sky's the limit, that linear thinking, right? Because right now we don't see each other. Once we start seeing each other, then we're going to start having a conversation, and we're going to start inspiring each other.
Trust building.
Yeah, we're going to build the trust. And once you get to the trust, then the collaboration. And once you get, the sky's the limit.
It is.
And so then, boom, Omek has to exist. And we'll pack our stuff from Germany to Amsterdam.
Wow.
That's why we came here to build Omek.
This is an amazing journey. And but I also can imagine, I also can imagine that from Guinea to the US, at first it might have been a culture shock, right? Because in a compound, safe, guided, protected, looking out for each other, then you come to America, it's a total different ball game. Yeah, there's nothing right or wrong. It's about a total different ball game. And how did your upbringing help you in navigate a completely different country and cultural aspect?
Yeah, it was huge. It was tremendous.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and that's why it's important, because for me, and then again, I always, again, coming back to the term, I was like, one of the most privileged because human on earth, because the family I was born in, the environment that I was born in, and then the things that it gave me was like such a strong sense of identity of who I am and my values and my cultural values and my family values. And then all these were like cemented in me before I left. So even though I came in the U.S. chasing the U.S. dream, the American dream,
Yes.
but I had my own dream that was really, really clear, right? And so when I came in the U.S., everything was completely different.
What age were you?
I was in my early 20s, 23.
Everything was different.
I mean, everything. Like I was at the university, my first year at the university. So I speak like the language. I was in the community. I had friends. Like at that time, like you are somebody. You fought. You think, and then yeah, exactly. Like you think you're cool. Like like it's like, ah, man. And then you come to the U.S. First of all, I speak French, and then nobody speaks French, and it's English. It's a totally different language. The culture, the climate. Back home, it's a collective society. It's a communal, like right. And then the U.S. is like one, me, myself, and I.
I think that is the biggest shock.
Oh, that's like huge.
Yeah.
And so like everything is different. It's like almost taking a fish from like the water and it's like
to the desert.
Yeah, it's like literally. And so, but and then sometimes we as an immigrant, like we don't realize it, like, but the resilience that we have, like even in that environment, like, I come here with a dream, so you're gonna make it happen. You're going to make it happen. Like, it's just, send me more challenges. Like, send me more. Like, oh, yeah. Like, so you have that mindset built in you. And so, like, that resilience is like, there's no plan B, there's no plan C, there's only one plan. And it's to succeed, and you're going to chase it. And so, with that mindset, like, I knew I would succeed. So, I don't speak the language, so I learned the language. It took me 6 months to go from zero English to go to the university, right? So I had to learn the language. I had to like it really 6 months. I was already signed up to the university. I was like, and so like that kind of like single-mindedness, like really focus, and it's like that resilience. And then you have to be able to adapt. Like you have to be flexible. So I had all these things built, and that really, really helped me navigate. But I think the resilience was like the things, like the courage. I didn't even like all of these things. Like now in hindsight, I can like put a finger to it, but like it was just like you have no option. Yeah. And so once you get into that, like I have no option. This is the only one option, and I'm gonna make it happen. And so that point is like I remember like I knew someone like a big brother figure, and we'll have like this joke like every time we have a challenge with like whatever process that whether it's a paperwork, whether it's like anything, we'll come and then laugh about it. Like we have a formula for this. Like, oh yeah, they were like testing me. Like they had absolutely no idea what mindset that we have. So he would go to a place where there will be like all complication, but you don't have this, but you don't have that, and then he would be laughing at that person. Do you know who you're talking to? Like, and so we literally had that mindset. And so he would come in and tell me this story. I'm like, oh, poor lady. Like, it would be like, poor lady. Because she'll be like, oh, well, you don't have this document, or you don't fit into this category, but you don't have this. And so I can't do it. Then it'll be like, no, this is going to happen. Like, so I feel bad for you. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, like, it's still to this. And we were like, one day we are going to sit and then talk about this and then laugh about it. So we're like projecting this future. And so like irrespective of the challenge, the more challenge, the more story we'll have. Like if I had some really big challenge and an obstacle, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to go back and tell him like, these people have no idea who they're dealing with. Like literally. And then so it's like, yeah, so that's how I overcome like those challenges.
Beautiful. And that brings me also to parentship. You have 3 children. Mm-hmm. One born in Africa. Mm-hmm. One born in USA and one born in Germany.
Yeah, 3 different continents.
It's already amazing. And also, knowing you now a little, how are you, well, helping them to adopt the same sort of bicultural consciousness? Because understanding it is one, cultivating is 2, but also helping your children adopt it, understand it, and cultivating. What can we learn?
Yeah, that's I feel like my children's almost in a privileged position, because I like everything that I'm learning now. So, okay, this is how I learned from my parents, right? Like, there was no time where my parents were like, hey, sit down, let me tell you about the importance of community. Like, no, that was
showing.
not.
So
Yeah, you just live in it.
Yep, exactly.
Like, you just live in it, so it become part of your, it's become part of your bubble. It's become part of, that's what I'm
your
using.
Routine, your life.
Yeah, your life. This is what you know. That's why I'm saying, like, I'm a community builder. Community building is part of my DNA, right? And my parents instilling us like that. This is life. This is how we live our life. This is what it is. We don't have to talk about it. And so I'm using similar technique with my kids. Like, because I'm building Omek, which is a privilege for them, right? And so they are there all the time.
They can witness. They
witness. They live it. They live it. They witness. They experience it. They know what Omek is. They talk about it. They, like, when we organize an event, they participate in. They cut in the flyers. They preparing. When you come to the Omek event, you see my son there checking people in. And then when we're doing the games and the stuff, he's involved. They're all involved. They're there. They see the people. They see my friend. They're like, oh, Kobe. And then like all these people. Yeah. So they will grow up understanding the community. And, you know, like a lot of the things, especially also growing up here, that where there's this lack of representation, when you're like, oh, you can't be somebody that you don't see, like, they won't have that problem. They come to Omek, they've seen all these successful people. So nobody can tell them, like, oh, the black people are not successful. All their dad's friends are successful people in their own right. And then they come in there and they're so humble, and then the community. And so that's the way I'm teaching them. Like still to this day,
teaching by showing.
And getting them involved.
Involved.
Yes.
In the world you're creating.
Yes.
Where you believe in.
Yes.
Where your values are in Omek. Yeah. And then witnessing, experiencing.
And so they're growing up with that. And then also from the bicultural perspective, I'll always have this conversation with them, because they travel, like, they've been in so many countries. And I'm like, we're always counting those countries. I'm like, look, how old are you right now? Like, how many countries you've been in? And how old is your dad? Like, we have a similar number of countries we've been in. Like, you haven't even started yet. Like, I mean, think about the privilege that you have, right? And then I always like, the fact that you're an African, the fact that you have that cultural aspect in you, you don't know it right now, but like it's a power that you have. Like, you can go right now in Guinea, and then your grandparents there, and then your uncles and aunties, and understand that culture. And then you can turn around, go to US, and then have your grandparents there, and then like completely different. And it's like, that's amazing that you have. And you live here in the Netherlands, right? It's a totally different culture, the language, and like, you have all in you. So that's amazing. Like, think about it. And then like the people who don't have that, your friends who don't have that, and like, so might be jealous, and then say whatever they say. Like, you should realize the things that you have that they don't have is your superpower. And so like that part, I kind of like explain it to them and then show it to them, and then like have them live it. So by the time they get to my age, they're going to take this bicultural things into the next level.
While listening to you, I'm also a little bit envisioning a sort of Omek school. How would that be? How would that be? An Omek school. And also because there is so much to learn about being proud of who you are and where you come from. and also unpack that, try to understand that, and use it in an advantage instead of being somewhere where you are expected in a sort of acting in a sort of way and pushing away the culture you came from. And then but it starts at a young age, and I think I really believe that we also should educate the education system.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was one time, I do this bicultural session a lot with a corporate space, and then I was at one big global corporate talking about bicultural identity and all that stuff. And then after the session, this lady came to me. It's like, oh my God, I have a bicultural kid. And I never heard this term before. Like, I've never heard this concept before. And she was so mesmerized. And she was like, okay, this is what you need to do. We need to go in school, like in high school, like not high school, like in the the lower level. Yeah. And we need to, like, the kids need to, I want my kid to hear about this. Do you have a program? Like, I've never even thought about it because I've been always thinking about, like, you know.
I get goosebumps when on something.
And then she's like, do you have a program for this kid? And she's like, that's one thing, but also the teachers, because the teachers, like, don't understand. So I have these kids who are bicultural and the teacher don't understand. The teacher who are teaching them don't understand. And then now you're telling me my kids have a superpower? Oh my God, I never seen it that way. I want you to, like, have a program to teach the teacher. And then she was like opening all this door. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's so true. That's so true, because the teacher who are here, most of them are Dutch, right? Born and raised here. So the lens they have, which is normal, is the culture that they have here, and that's the lens they have.
Yes.
And so if they don't have that bicultural identity in them, they need some education so they can see bicultural kids come in and be part of, like, a catalyst of, like, letting them blossom, letting them embrace that superpower they have. Imagine if the bicultural kids have the teacher that's like, yo, this is your superpower, and I'm going to help you understand it, harness it, and become that conscious at kid age. But what's happening in school, the school is teaching them, like, no, you need to speak proper Dutch. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem going to the next school and then all that in the university. Yeah. And so this is, like, you need to completely ignore this bicultural thing. And I'm trying to help you here. So, like, you were really smart. And so you need to, and I basically telling them to assimilate. And so, like, a lot of the immigrant kids, all of them, that's the school system right now. So even if you speak your local, your traditional language, your kids, the school will see that, like, hey, they're behind in their Dutch.
Yeah.
That's in the U.S. My sister was in the U.S. and they were, like, speaking multiple language to their kid, and the kid was, like, a bit behind in the language skill because they're absorbing all these different languages. And they're like, you need to stop teaching them you need to stop, like, it had to be only English. Exactly. So this is my saying. I always say this. If you don't know who you are, people will always tend to tell you who you're supposed to be. And the society that you live in, because that's the society, culture, and norm and stuff, would always tend to tell you who you're supposed to be. So that's where the school concept, like, part of my mission is really create awareness about this concept. So yes, the idea of Omek School, that's a big awareness thing. Like you said, it's on the making. It's on the making.
Wow. Oh wow. This is amazing. And what I discovered in the podcast is that we are very easily it comes very easy when I ask what you're doing and how you're doing, but how you do the things what you're doing. But when it comes to who you are and who we are, then it's getting interesting, right? If you ask somebody right away, hey, who are you? No, but not what, and not about the business, and not about how easy it is for you to answer that question. If somebody comes along and says, hey, but Kemo, who are you? What do you say? Oh,
that's a good question. I have like a a value chain. So I am my values, right? I have a value chain. The things that's the most important to me in life is my belief. So first and foremost, my religious belief. That's the most important. Everything else, that's the number one. That's my that's like the holding pillar. So that's who I am. Then after that, I am a dad, right? So I have a kids and then all that stuff. No, I actually, even before that, I'm like, because my parents come after that. So my family, that's my roots. Like there's like the level of respect. So that will make me, I'm someone's kids, right? I'm like that. And then it's like my family. So like my kid and then all that stuff. So so I would describe myself from my spiritual belief, then the family that I come from, right? Because that's my source code, right? So like every conversation we had right now, because it just come from there. So that one. And now they put me here and they gave me everything. So I became this person. So in that part of that person is like me, my wife, my kid, and then all that stuff, right? So that's the third layer. And the fourth layer is the community. It's a community that I'm building because that's what I do. Like, as part of like my expression is the best way to help myself is to help other people. And so if the other people don't exist, then I can help myself the best way possible, right? And so the community become like the fourth layer of that. And then part of that bigger layer of the community, then I see myself as an African, right? Because again, that's my heritage. That's where I come from. Then after being an African, then I'm from Guinea. Like most people have the flip around like that. But what I am now is like, I'm African first, then my country comes next. And then that's like a really important discussion because most African is like, no, Africa is not a country. So I'm from Guinea first, then I'm an African. For me, and I'm an African first.
Yeah.
Then I'm Guinean.
That's the way you feel it also, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's very important. And it's like a lot of nuances there. So that's the layer of who I am.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think if we allow ourselves to deeply think how much layers I do exist of, then it becomes easier to answer the question in and on itself, right? Because normally we just tend to say one layer, that's my work. No, but it's work. That's not who you are. It's partly of what you're doing is maybe aligned with who you are, but it's only partly.
Yeah. I used to ask this question, which was not very smart at the time, but like I used to go to work and then I'll ask my colleague, even sometimes a lot of the time my leaders, like if I have like a one-on-one, with your director and stuff like that, that would be the one question I'll ask them. I'm like, what is the thing that centers you?
Ooh.
Like I didn't realize the time. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? That's like this. It's a way of asking people, who are you?
What's the thing that centers you?
Yeah. What is the thing that centers you? And then people will be like, my family, like my kid and my family. I'm like, what if your family dies today? Think about it. Like if your whole family, like that tragedy happened to you today, would you die? Would you kill yourself? And some people be like, my job, what do you get fired today? Like what is that thing, that pillar that centers you? If everything else goes, you have that, then you're good. What is it? And so for me, like, because I've been practicing that, because I've been answering that, then it's kind of like have these layers, right?
It's mind-blowing what you just said. And I'm so happy that we reached this level of depth. But I'm going to turn this question around. With all the layeredness, which you beautifully articulated. and share it with us. What centers you?
My religion.
Period.
Like I can lose everything today. If I lose that one, I'm like so imbalanced. It's crazy. My spirituality.
Beautiful.
Like, and so once I answer that, it's so clear. And then it's different for everyone.
Of course.
So that's why it's important. Like, if you can answer that, then you start knowing who you are and what is important to you. And then you start defining your values. Right? Because after my spirituality, like even my parents, like I have my parents because of my spiritual belief. Like I don't want to, like I'm because of my spiritual belief. Yeah. I have everything after that. I have everything that I have today because of my parents. Right? And so they gave me something who became me who is here today. And so that part of that is like my kids, my family that I created. So like third layer now. And then me, like my values know who I am. Like really what makes me happy is like the most fundamental inside me. Like the little thing, like honestly through Omek, like or anything. When I help someone, I contribute and I see the person successful or like something, like the joys that happen inside you, that little sense of like, oh, I did help someone. Yeah. Not because of like, I don't even them like, so they acknowledge or they pay me, but like, no. Like just a pure,
the joy.
Like, something happened inside you as a human. Like that is so pure. And then for me, that is helping me because it does something inside me. Like this. So that's how I'm helping myself. So I have to work on them. They're like, oh man, that's so amazing. Like they're happy, but like it does something to actually the fact that I'm helping them, I'm actually helping me. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh, I don't need anything from it. I'm not doing so for you to. No, I'm doing it because it keep building something in me. It keep building something in me. And so like then you start looking at the layers that way. So like that question is like really like whoever's like, if you can really sit with yourself, because nobody can answer that for you.
Nope.
If you can sit with yourself, it's like, man, this is like people who start with their job. Like my job, like most people will start with their family. Like if they don't think about this, or they say, oh, my family. So what if you lose your whole family today? Does that mean you don't exist? Like what are you going to do then? If it's then you start quickly realizing you're not even going to talk about the material. When we spend all of our life like so attached to our title, our job title, our material, but like if you start thinking about what centers you, that's why people who don't have the question answer, and it's like if the material, that money, that prestige, that title, or the mask, whatever you want to call it, when they lose that, what do? They kill themselves.
Thank you very much for that question, because it made me also, of course, it forces you to reflect. You can't ignore that question. You just can't escape. When you're sitting in front of you and you're asking what centers you, then you saw me looking a little bit away. And when you asked that question, that's when I'm starting to think, hey, but it's what will be my answer? And to be honest, I have found my answer right away from deep inside. My soul. And my soul I inherited from my birth mother, who gave me 3 things, 3 times life in and on itself, a chance for a better life by giving me away for adoption, and the 3rd one is her life force. But that soul, ultimately, so thank you very much, brother, for sharing this, because it makes it more conscious, which was already unconsciously stored in me. So,
yeah. And then now, like, for you, it's like you had this in mind. Now you validate.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you ask that question and you're like, oh, even validate, like, what I'm already thinking. And it's like, it's almost giving you a vocabulary now to, like, so.
Yeah, it is. And a compass, and a sort of navigating compass.
Yeah.
Right. Wow,
that went deep.
It went deep. Whoa. Yeah, I love it.
We were expecting this to go deeper like that. We didn't expect it.
I didn't expect that at all. And I hope that's what I'm hoping for sure, because journeys of empowerment is for sure not only about what we're doing, but it's strongly related to why we're doing what we're doing, and ultimately how is it aligned with who we are. So much thank you for everything what you shared today, and also for the big reflection moments. While we're heading towards the end of our I hope beautiful for others, but I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
I did.
And while we're heading towards the end, we're now in the May, June, when this comes out. What are the most important things on the agenda for Omek these coming months?
We were supposed to have an event in May, but it's been postponed now. So yeah, I think everything now onto Omek is like a behind the scene, like all building.
Yes.
You and I were actually going to have a conversation more in that.
We will.
We will have a conversation in that space. Yeah, so like right now we're working more on the Omek value proposition event. We understand it, but we like really want to refine it more for our community, because we're going to keep doing this for the whole life of the Omek, which is hopefully 100 years from now. So like the value proposition, what our members want, and how do we provide that to them in the best way possible. So we're like really focusing on that work behind the scenes. So like really wanted to take a little bit of break from organizing event and a gathering to like really focus on this, and then maybe like around summer or like in the second part after summer, like there's gonna be more events happening, but like that then we'll be ready to like maybe unveil some of these products and services that we working behind the scene on.
I truly hear a lot of your upbringing also about the way you explained this last part, because it's not only about helping, and it's not only about making it bigger than yourself, but also longer than you will live. You will the community will outlive you and extend to multiple generations. That's what you're aiming for, right?
Yes, that's. Wow. I'm like standing on the shoulder of like people who paved the path. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I would be doing the work that they did if they hadn't done that work. So like generation have done the thing, and then we're here. So we also need to move very far. And then the best way to do that is like start thinking like, where can we be 100 years from now? What do I need to start planting today? What are the foundation that I need to put in place today? So like 100 years, this work is being continued. So yeah.
Last question for now, for me, from my side is, what is one thing that you want to do or want to change to help Omek grow even further? Is there one thing you have in mind, or maybe it can be a sort of help from outside or whatever? What's the one thing you want to do?
Create awareness. Create awareness, create more and more awareness. The past 3-4 years, like we've been putting our head down very intentionally of like figuring out what does the community want and how do we execute against that. Like that's been very intentional. So like everything Omek is done to now is like been word of mouth, organic growing and all that stuff. And we are at that point where like we have some sense of that. But there's like millions of people out there have no idea a place like Omek could even exist. And so it is our responsibility to make sure at least they hear about it. They can make a decision whether they join or not. But like, how do you put in front of them? How do they hear about it? And so I think that's like, if there's one thing, it's just like, how do we create awareness? How do we pick up the biggest megaphone and then tell people like, yo, this community exists, this type of space exists.
Do you also envision maybe another? We can sit for hours, of course, but I'm getting curious a little bit about. Are you also thinking about creating multiple hubs in different countries.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
extend Omek community also, and to make sure that it's getting properly built also there.
Yeah, so that's why I summarize that as awareness. But like this now, when you think about how you're gonna do the awareness, then that's why info that you know. So like
we will jump into that behind the scenes. Let's
but like right now, Omek, people think because we're based here in the Netherlands, like we are Netherlands based, but in fact we are already across 75 different countries around the world. So like all the continent. Right. And so like 75 different countries so far around the world. So we have a very solid global footprint.
Oh, only 75.
Yeah.
It's not big enough, of course. Eh?
So we are, and then we're just getting started. So we're on the way there. So, you know, one of the way of like really creating that massive awareness is like, you know, each country, like right now we're doing like starting to do meetups in the countries, but like we have like the hub there.
Yeah.
And then like, because Omek members that's there, they're going to start like building the things and then start spreading. So that's the awareness campaign, the strategy, how it's going to go. Yeah, the ripple effect, how globally, how do you make that happen?
Oh,
so we're going to be in London this year and in Sweden, maybe in Barcelona and Portugal. So like a few of this country this year, we're going to be there and started launching this like meetup and stuff like that. So
it's almost like, or am I putting it in the wrong way? It's also brand awareness. Mm-hmm. It's a brand. It's something which people aspire to be part of, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I love that. Kemo, for this conversation, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. But
at some point,
I would love to thank you for your openness, for all the reflection questions you shared, and also I truly admire your journey and learned a lot. And that's it's the groundedness and the strong centeredness in you. That's really what the world needs.
Thank you.
Thank you for being you.
No, thank you for creating this environment for this conversation. I mean, we were like talking about it before the podcast, right? Like, oh, let's just go with it and then just completely open. And then I was like, well, we did not realize how deep it was.
No.
But everything, this was not, script or anything. It was like a very genuine. So like you do like a really, really good job in like asking this question and like you just creating an environment to have a conversation. I think the world definitely need this type of conversation. So thank you for the work that you're doing. But at the end of the day, we're just getting started, man. We got a lot of work to do.
Yes,
so
we do.
That's why I always say, let's go. Let's make it happen.